Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. Today is our 100th episode of the Business of Apparel podcast. So I wanted to bring someone on who I wouldn't be able to have a podcast or a business without. And I'd like to introduce you to my husband. So today we're actually sitting in the same room. We've been trying to figure out how exactly to do this podcast. We didn't want to pretend like we were in different offices because he would just be down the hall. And then we were trying to figure out what the heck would we talk about? And so in my head, this was just going to be a big conversation about supporting a small business owner and what that's like for him. And as we started talking through that, I realized I was going to need to probably have some good questions to prompt him. So I have some index cards here today. I am just going to read off the index cards and we're going to see how this goes. I am a total shitty podcast host and sent these to him last night. And I have no idea how he's going to answer these. We didn't get a chance to chat about it. So yeah. So we'll see what happens today, but thanks for being here and thanks for coming on. I know it's been a little bit of convincing over time.
I'm surprised you wanted me. I don't have a face for TV or a voice for radio.
Oh, brother.
Hopefully Jeremy can auto-tune me out and then set.
We're going to Britney Spears-ify your voice on here.
There Perfect.
We go. All right. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. When we first got married, were you after my money?
I was. all of it. You did promise me lots of riches, and
we're working on it.
We're working on it. Yeah,
we're working on it. Yeah. So when we first got married, I actually made a little bit more in salary than Kyle, and so we were just to make the joke that I was going to be his sugar mama, and we're back to the point where we're working on that, and that's why we've taken this risk together to allow me to start my business while Kyle continues to be in corporate. But yeah, it's kind of a running joke in our house that he's always been after my money. So, okay. What are your favorite pieces of advice for people getting married today? What are some things that have worked for us?
I don't know. I'm I don't have any young friends who come to me for advice about this.
Yeah, but if you did have friends who were going to be asking you about marriage, you wouldn't have any advice for them?
Probably the easiest one or the obvious one is communicate. And don't just make it superficial communication. Sometimes you have to have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
And then probably patience. Easier said than done for sure. I'm not the epitome of patience, but it helps.
Yeah, I think some of my pieces of advice end up being really practical and almost bedroom related, but not in a dirty way. Number 1, the bedroom, at least for us, is meant for 2 things. If we're going to read before bed or we're going to watch TV or anything like that, we do it in a separate room. And so if we're in the bedroom, it means we're either sleeping, and we definitely get a lot of good sleep, or we're having sex. And I think the other thing that a lot of people who know us really, really well just know this advice. But so there was a thing that happened, what was this, last year we saw where everybody was starting to get 2 beds for their master bedroom. And we always that's how we have definitely kind of curated our sleeping habit too, where even from the beginning of us getting together, we always had separate blankets, but we still sleep in the same bed. So I don't know why, but that is always one of my biggest pieces of advice when it comes to getting married is you need to get good sleep. And so reserve the bedroom for sleep and consider not necessarily getting separate beds because that leaves no room for spontaneity, but maybe consider having getting rid of the flat sheet and getting rid of a shared comforter and just each having separate blankets. That has worked really well for us over the last 15 years of being married.
147 years.
147 years. Yeah, that's what it feels like sometimes. Okay, next. Why do you think we've been such good partners to each other for so long now?
I don't know. See previous question.
See previous. Yeah. I don't know. I think you make me laugh and you challenge me because you're smarter than me. And
don't know about that.
And so when it comes to certain things, like I think you definitely challenge me and push me to be better, which I think is what good partners really do for each other.
And we get along, which is helpful. I mean, they make the joke about being your best friend, and you get along with your best friends for obvious reasons, but that certainly helps. It's just like, what do you want to do today? I don't know. Watch TV and eat pizza. Like, excellent. That's what I wanted to do. And I mean, it's maybe not healthy 40 days out of the year, but it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think you and I also met at a time where we were having a lot of fun in our lives. Kyle and I met when we were in college. And so I think we've brought a lot of that into our marriage. And sometimes we still think we're 20 years old, but 20 years later, it does create like a pretty good relationship for us. I would say too, your spouse is going to end up not just becoming your partner or your lover or anything like that, or your best friend, like Kyle said, but also your roommate. And when you think about any other roommate that you've maybe had in your life, like there are always going to be little things here and there, but learning how to live with someone for years, I think will really get you there. And being a good roommate, like, I don't know, simple things like cleaning up after yourself and helping each other with things goes a really long way. Okay, this is a good one. In your mind, how has our decision to be child-free allowed us to live differently?
In all the ways, probably is the right answer, or the answer is allowed us to the flexibility and the freedom to sort of bluntly to be selfish to ourselves.
Yeah.
Which allowed us to sometimes either take risks via traveling across the country for a new job, or being able to dedicate whatever other hobbies we wanted to do or work or whatever to ourselves. That's opened up other opportunities, just like generally speaking, to see more stuff, do more stuff. Yeah.
It's just a totally different lifestyle, like you said. And I know a lot of people do call child-free people selfish. I think there are a lot of selfless reasons that people and we chose to be child-free, but I also do think it allowed us to focus on our careers to a point where we might not have to work until we're 65 or until typical retirement age. And it's also allowed us to do what we're doing today, which has allowed me to open a business and take risks in that way too. I don't know, if we had children to support or children to send to school, I don't know that we would have done that. Not to say that we definitely wouldn't, but I think it would have been a big question. So yeah, I think it's really opened up some doors for us.
I would add that we're not really, well, I shouldn't say I'm not really risky in general. I'm very reserved when it comes to business and life and money and those kinds of things. So I'm already pretty reserved, but to have then like a genuine dependent, I don't know, it feels to a certain degree like it would freeze my little bit of risk I do have. Would be like, I just would say no all the time.
Yeah. It would close a lot of doors, I think, for us, because we'd be thinking about them,
right,
of course, as the primary focus of our lives and what we were doing. Totally agreed. Okay, next question. What is the number one thing that drives you crazy about me?
Oh, no. I don't know if I have. I knew you gave me these the night before.
This is like a therapy session.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. You gave me these the night before, and I kind of skipped over questions like, she won't actually ask that. And then here you are.
Well, we can skip it. You can say pass if you want to say pass.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think that hard about this one. I thought it was just a funny filler.
That's fine. Okay, we can pass on that.
I don't need to also get a therapist.
Okay. All right. Next question then. Why have you always been so open to following my career around the country?
I think at first it was the place that I was working allowed me to do it. So it was like, I don't care. Let's go. It wasn't like it was do whatever you want. It was more of that's not a barrier. Like I wasn't tied to an office. I was work from home before it was cool to work from home.
Yes, you were.
And so I could go wherever you needed or wanted to go. It wasn't like a conscious decision, like I'm going to support, necessarily. It was more of a, hey, we're in a position that I can, or I can be flexible enough that it's just like, okay, you do you, and off we went.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair though, it happened a lot of times. We moved from Ohio to Texas, and then Texas to Colorado, and then Colorado to California, and then back to Colorado from California.
And it was only that last one, that this California to Colorado, that was like, we need to plan appropriately. Every single other one of the other ones was, again, where I was working, it was not an issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, just obviously we made it work. It wasn't a problem to move back to Colorado. But we found towns and cities and places, and sometimes it vibed with us and sometimes it didn't. Like, it was kind of that simple. So, usually we were on the same page and wanting to go anyways. So
yeah. Well, with that question, was there ever a time when you didn't want to follow me to the next place?
When we left from Colorado to California, that one was hard.
Yeah.
In hindsight, of course, it was great for our careers. It was great for, business. It was great for all sorts of things. But that one was the tough one, I think, because, it was our first actual house.
Yeah.
It was a place that we felt like we found our people. It resonated very, very loudly. So that was the tough one.
Yeah, I agree. Essentially why we came back, right? Because we felt like we had found our people. And I don't know about you, but I at least feel like I'm back with my people. And I don't know if I ever really felt that exact same way when we were in California. I think we had a couple of different times where we would go to Southern California and get close. But the spot we were in Northern California, and they should just be two different states, like, let's just say it right now, it's such a big territory and the two areas are so very different from each other. But yeah, I just never quite felt like I fit in the same way.
Yeah. So if we had moved to Southern California, it would have been much easier to move there, and almost probably harder to move back, all things considered. To your point about Southern California is a very different beast.
Yeah. Yeah. Changing the subject a little bit. Is it a creative outlet for you to help me with photography and videography now? So for those of you who don't know, obviously Jeremy does the podcast, and his team does amazing with editing the podcast, but almost all the other videos that I put out and most of the photography, maybe half of the photography at this point, is actually done by Kyle. So do you feel like that's a creative outlet for you when you get to do it?
It is, yes. Starting with photography, I feel like some people have a knack for, or an ability for, taking portraits and people photography, which is very different from what I think I like better and what I feel like I'm better at. I like taking pictures of things and stuff and nature stuff. Like, that's where like
this picture behind us was taken by Kyle.
Yeah. Like, those kinds of things are my creativity, my creative outlet. Taking pictures of people is much harder. I'm not a photographer professional, so, caveat. But for me, it's harder. It ends up being somewhat easier for you and with you, mostly because of, well, not mostly, but because of, like, your training on camera,
Sure.
The fact that you've had to do it a lot for other engagements. So that makes it easier. I don't have to, like, try to figure out how to coach you. Like, everyone talks about where to put my hands, stuff like that. Like, how do I pose? Those kinds of things. I don't have the answer to that question. So, like, if you didn't know what you were doing, it would be a lot tougher.
Sure.
The videography side of things was interesting because it was completely new. Like, sure. Most cameras had an ability to record. And while I had an SLR that could record, I never used it. And while you record stuff on your phone, it's not quite the same thing. So there was a technical aspect of learning how to do recordings, and then also a different technical aspect on post, right? So, like, I knew Lightroom. That wasn't too difficult to figure out, but, like, the entire other Adobe suite products for doing video was a challenge, but is one of the things I like to do. So it was useful in that regard, I suppose. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Kyle, like, blows me out of the water now when it comes to the Adobe Creative Suite. Like, I went to school for it. At one point I was really, really good at Photoshop. I've always kind of maintained my skills in Illustrator, but when it comes to, like, Adobe Premiere and Adobe Premiere Rush and stuff like that to do editing now, like, Kyle I take everything to him because he's so much better at it. So do you want to take a break and do your shout out to Jeremy?
I did. It was my auto tune. But...
Oh, okay. Gotcha. We just wanted to say hi to Jeremy. We wanted to throw that in there. Okay. What do you feel are sacrifices you make while waiting for my business to grow?
I don't know. Didn't have an answer for that one either. It wasn't because I didn't think it was a joke question. I don't think I felt like I've sacrificed anything.
You don't feel like you're stuck at corporate.
I mean, sure, but if we assume that you were still at corporate, I'd still be at corporate.
Sure,
Like
that's fair.
there'd be no difference really. I mean, the only thing that was the carrot was, I'm gonna make a whole bunch of money and then I can retire early. Well, that's not a sacrifice. It's just anticipation.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's a good way of looking at it. My next question was going to be what makes you willing to make those sacrifices, but I think you just answered it. There's like,
I did. There's the yes. I would much prefer to not have to work.
so that's what we're working toward here at Unmarked Street in the Business of Apparel is getting Kyle out of corporate too, so that he can just be my permanent photographer, videographer, and IT guy. So that's the goal. Is there a dream career for you after corporate? After we figure out how to retire you early?
I don't know. I'm lazy. I'm really lazy. I enjoy riding my bike, and that's it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like photography, and I do at heart like doing, computer stuff. I don't know if I have, and some other hobbies, but I don't know if I have it in me to go back to work in some fashion. Maybe I do, but right now I don't know. The possibility of not having to and getting to go ride my bike all the time is too great.
So that kind of starts to answer the next question, which is how would you spend a perfect day in retirement? Now we know it would be on the bike, at least partially.
Yeah. I think that the hard part, right, you hear these stories and you read these articles about, being prepared for retirement and blah, blah, blah. And so, and there's definitely some weight behind it. Since I'm not retired, I don't actually know. I could totally get to a point where I could see, riding 20 hours a week and not having it anymore again because I'm an old and not be able to sustain that. Well, so then I cut the time down, and now what am I doing for the whole day? Like,
sure.
I've already finished Netflix twice. I don't know. What else am I going to watch on the couch? So there's something there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's totally fair. And for what it's worth, like, I think we are both at a point in our careers and in our lives where retirement is an interesting concept. Like, there are days, especially with running the business, don't get me wrong, there are days where, like, I'm slammed and I am in this office, in meetings, or doing marketing, or doing videos, or whatever it is, like, all day long. And I'm exhausted by the end of the day. But then there are other days where I almost get this sense of, like, this is what retirement would feel like. Like, I would have a few things to do for work. I would get in a workout, a really nice walk outside, read a book, and that would be a really good day in retirement. So I think what's really interesting about our lives right now and the risks that we've taken to get here, I think in our lives and in our marriage is really kind of allowing us to get a glimpse of that. But yeah, to your point, it's not quite here yet, so it's hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a financial freedom aspect to be able to have a choice on what you did.
Yeah.
Be it work or be it nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. This one's hard. I said that I would answer it too. I don't know if I have one, so we can pass on this one if you want. But do you have a favorite memory of us together?
It is hard.
There's a lot of them.
They're all so good.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah, but really, like, when I was trying to think about answering this question too, I had a couple of, like, I don't know why, but when we got off the boat or got off the ferry and we landed on Capri and we went to that little stand and had those, like, limoncello spritzes before we could get into the hotel. I don't know why, but that memory, like, really rings true to me as, like, just, we had so much fun that day and it was so beautiful out. We were in this amazing, beautiful place. And I don't know, it was hard for me to think of others though, because we've had a lot of amazing trips that we've taken. I mean, I even think back to, like, our wedding, and it was genuinely a perfect day. Like, we basically eloped and just invited our immediate family, and we got married on the beach and nobody wore shoes. It was like, I don't know, there's just a lot of really good memories. So
I'm going back to that first one though, like the getting beers on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Or was it wine? One of the two. It was
in Rome.
Rome. Yeah. That was really nice. It was fortunate it was after the race, but walking Monaco, the Formula One Grand Prix track, that was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, I agree. I think when it comes to just being home, like, there are days where good memories are made all the time, but I've got some really good dirty ones that I'm not going to share today, but those are some good memories too. So do you have a favorite place that we've visited together? We just mentioned a few of them, but
yeah, those were all fun. Those were all good.
Do you have a favorite city that we've gone to?
I mean, we've not had a ton of US cities to that regard.
We do have a lot of traveling we want to do here.
Every time that we've gone, every time that we went to like the Dana Point area was always enjoyable in one way or another.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and the handful of European cities, of course, they were all fun, they were all vacation.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know. I could live in Rome. I could leave tomorrow and live in Rome and never come back and just eat pasta all day, every day and get really fat. So did you ever imagine that after just 18 years in, we've been together for 18 years now, that we'd be where we are today?
No.
Yeah, me either.
I didn't think it would be, especially at the start, I didn't think it was going to be Colorado.
Fair.
And definitely didn't think we would have the careers that we have had.
Yeah.
I feel like from the start, though, that going back to the earlier part of this, the Childfree thing, I kind of was always sort of on that boat.
Yeah, you were.
So for me, that kind of was true. But I think the specifics of the rest of it, absolutely not.
Yeah. I feel like we've made it really far, really fast. And again, to your point, like bringing up the Childfree stuff, I feel like that's probably what's allowed us to accelerate our career growth and really focus on that. I also think it's rare to find a partner. Like, you're really open if I need to work in the evening and like have my laptop while we're, I don't know, watching football or something like that. Or if you're on call and you need to get up and go do something, like, I don't like, that's what we do. That's kind of our focus right now while we work towards some bigger things. And I think what's interesting is, you and I have been working for a really long time toward this ultimate goal of retirement or not having to work or being at least financially independent so that we don't. And I'm super curious to find out over the next like 5-10 years if we actually choose to leave work, because it's become so ingrained in us. And because I think you and I have both found different ways to really love what we do. But yeah, it'll be an interesting little journey over the next 10 to 18 years too. Okay, last question. Will you forgive me for not sending this list of questions to you until the night before the podcast? Because I'm very sorry that I did that.
I think you're forgiven. But again, you sent it to me and I had all day to at least prepare, and I still didn't prepare. So I don't know how much.
So there we go. Okay, all right. I'm out of the doghouse on that one. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was really fun for me. Truly, truly, like Kyle has been, it's the biggest life hack to have a really supportive partner who not just is okay with what you're doing, but is truly like your biggest cheerleader and supports you and is willing to do what needs to get done so that you can do what you need to do too. I don't know. I'm just really, really lucky. So I wanted to have him on today because, like I said, the company would not exist without his openness to stay at corporate and continue supporting us as a family. And being willing to take the risk with me and seeing where all of this could potentially go. So this was a really special one for me. If you liked this episode, let us know by sharing a review on the podcast. If you like this episode, you want to share it with somebody, that would really mean a ton to us too. And if you really enjoyed having Kyle on, let me know and maybe we'll start a regular guest with Kyle.
Oh no, this was not one and done.
All right. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.